This is a Greer City Council meeting called, convened this evening, September 14th, 2021. Having called the meeting to order, I would like to ask Councilmember Jay Airwood to offer an invocation to council and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity you've given me and given this council to be here tonight to conduct the business of your city. You blessed us in so many ways, and I ask that you give us thought and consideration and wisdom we need to make the decisions that are pleasing in your sight and best for your city. I ask, Lord, you continue to bless us, bless the folks who are working day to day to serve our citizens. Go with us now through this meeting, and may all we do be pleasing to you. In your holy name I pray.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and as we do every meeting, we offer a time for public forum at the first of the meeting. This is a time for council in regards to items that are on public forum this evening. That then, we will move to the minutes of the council meeting from August the 24th. You should have those in your packet. I will entertain a motion that they be received. So, have a motion is that. Any items to note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Mayor Danner?
Yes. We find ourselves at the administrator's report. Mr. Merriman, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening. A couple things I want to touch base with you on real quick. Reminder that Oktoberfest is this weekend. It'll be hosted in our downtown, and we're looking forward to that. The second thing I know has been of interest to y'all is the parking garage. We'll be opening it on the 24th. That is a week from Friday, in advance of the Arts and Eats chamber event that will be held that weekend. Another reminder is that the benefits fair for council and for city employees will be held this Thursday between 7:30 and 12 at the Cannon Center. And just as a reminder that this is also the time of open enrollment, which begins at the benefits fair. So if you have to make any changes, any city employees or council needs to make any changes, that's the time to do it. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is something that we've been considering at the staff level and working with our partners at Co-Transco and the South Carolina Department of Transportation as we consider to continue to look at how traffic moves in and around our central business district with all the growth and development that we've had going on. We are looking at the possibility of a road diet, and it's exactly what it sounds like, changing the way traffic flows through our downtown, specifically in this case from the top of Main to around the Bearden Street area, going from a 4-lane road to a 3-lane divided, or it's just an engineering function, a traffic function that could absorb the same amount of traffic, but ought to provide a better safer pedestrian experience and more in line with the streetscaping that we're working on there. SCDOT is looking favorable at it, and there will be some public hearings that will be coming soon to allow the public to give some input in that. And I think we will probably host them in this venue, but that details of that are yet to be worked out. But I just wanted y'all to be aware that those are some things that are being considered, and we look forward to having the public input and working with SCDOT on this. Unless there's any specific questions for me or anything I can take back to staff, that is the report, sir.
About the road diet.
Yes, sir.
This is probably wouldn't happen except a good ways down the road. finished their road and sidewalks now. Will we have to tear any of that up to do that?
No, sir. Actually, it's really just a function of striping. The right-of-way exists that can absorb what the plan would be. And so, no, sir, that wouldn't require any additional right-of-way work on the sides. We would need to go on that Bearden Street end and do a little more milling that would tie in a little more smoothly. But that's not removing anything that we've done. This is actually just a little additional work to take the paving, so the painting and everything else is safe. So that's, no, sir. Well, I don't think, I think Mike in particular, and I know I would probably throw a fit if all the work that we've done on streetscape, we decided to rip it up just to replace it. So he would definitely have a Fred Sanford moment if I came in and told him that that's what we're going to do. So to answer the question, no, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Others? Let's move to items of old business, council. First item before us this evening is the second and final reading of ordinance number 40-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Monica Covington and Dolly Daly Bradley, located at 500 Snow Road, by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Mr. McMahon joins us for this discussion. Mr. McMahon, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 16th and did recommend approval of the DRD zoning request. That's all the information that I have, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion. And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to the second item. It's the second and final reading of ordinance number 41-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Scott and Monica Covington located at 510 Snow Street by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Any new or additional information in that regard, Mr. McMahon?
No, sir, other than Planning Commission did hold a public hearing and did recommend approval.
Entertain a motion to receive for the purpose of discussion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 42-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of properties owned by J. Munoz and Thomas Inman located at 415 King Street and Hampton Road from RM1 to DRD. Any new or additional information in that regard, Mr. McMahon?
No, sir.
Comes without new or additional information. For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
And a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to item 4, second and final reading of ordinance number 43-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by Ice Station Greer LLC located at 211 School Street from S1 to C1. Mr. McMahon,
No, sir, there is no new information.
with that then, I'll entertain a motion to receive. And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions?
We have determined that the properties that they own, they're not going to abut residential, correct?
Not residential zoning.
Others? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance 44-2021. This is a zoning classification, it is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by Max Geezy located at Brushy Creek Road from RM2 to DRD. Any new or additional information in that regard, Mr. McMahon?
No, sir.
With that, for the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive. And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to the sixth item, the second and final reading of ordinance number 45-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by Cat Properties LLC located at 200 West Poinsett Street from C2 to C1. Mr. McMahon, any new or additional information in regards to ordinance number 45-2021?
No, sir.
Entertain a motion to receive for the purpose of discussion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor's open for discussion.
Was the purpose going to C1 so the building would be close to the street, parking in the rear? Is that?
It was due to setback issues with it being a corner lot and being C2. They had 25 feet off of Poinsett and 25 feet off of Miller, so it kind of reduced what they would be able to do, and it had the additional parking requirement.
You've seen, C1 require it to be up closer to the sidewalk, or is it?
He could potentially move it closer to the sidewalk. We haven't seen plans yet. Believe he's still just working with
Will it
architect.
require it? Or is it anywhere?
He just basically gives him that reduction in setback that he could do. He could go all the way to the property line, or he could set it back further.
All the way to the front property line?
No.
It'd be all property lines. He would still have to screen. There's property on the rear that is residential that he would have to buffer against that.
And so he could bring the development to the property line, correct?
In theory, but he would have to have that buffer on the rear. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
but yeah.
And were you asking about sidewalks?
No.
I'm sorry.
My question was, can he bring the building up to the front sidewalk? Because it's C1.
I'm sorry, what did you say about that?
He could, with zero line setbacks in C1, he could bring it to the property line.
Excuse me.
Sir?
I said, excuse me, I thought no. So on West Poinsett Street, it can come all the way to the sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's not necessarily West Poinsett, correct? It's
He could also-
C1. C1 is.
Yeah, but I mean, in this particular case.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And this is just on, do you have the map of it?
I don't, but I can pull one up real quick if you'd like.
Just corner of Miller and Poinsett.
There's no C1 on the left, I mean, if you're facing the lot, there's no C1 on the left side of Miller. Like it stops.
It typically stops the church office that's right next to it on the other side of this vacant lot. It is C1 on that side.
Well, at least one of those houses above that, I can't remember which one, is also maybe at the corner of Davenport and Poinsett.
Is
That's
that
the property in question.
Yes, sir.
Is that, now Davenport and Poinsett, is that not OD? Or is it?
Looks like it may be. What's the purple
Yeah,
there?
OD.
Purple is OD. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the 202 just to the left of this property is C1, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it does go to the left side of Miller. That's kind of, I thought that it stopped. I don't remember seeing that last time when we looked at it. But it does have a pretty significant setback. I mean, the property that's on, or the building that's on that property right now is, and I would think that'd be consistent with, what happens up the street too, as you
This property here is completely vacant,
That's a
so
vacant lot.
202?
202, yes, 202 is not vacant. The property that he is going to build on is completely vacant. It's, I believe, an old gas station from back in the day
I was talking about the lot to the left.
for this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that building's probably set back 20 feet off the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's got that, it used to have a fountain in front of it when it was CPW
Right.
office. Others?
It's, that 202 is zone C1, but is it consistent with C1? Is it consistent with the rest of the setup down there, in your opinion?
Really, the C1 is really just based on the uses. So I believe what you're thinking of with Miller is there's an overlay district that ends right here. It's the downtown overlay district. Let me turn that on for you. And what that overlay district does, it has the downtown requirements for material standards.
I see.
I'm turning it.
It's just basically everything on the right side of Miller, just doesn't extend to the left.
So typically everything from West Arlington down to kind of Daniel and Mayfield is all kind of in that overlay district.
Hold on before you take that down now. So the building's not in, I thought it was in the overlay district, but it's not.
No, sir.
So it doesn't have to look like downtown.
No, sir.
Do you know what their intent is with this site?
In talking with the applicant, I believe he wants to kind of move his law office from downtown to this location and kind of rent out what he owns on Trade Street.
So this could be, and I'm not saying that it would be, but it could be pre-engineered steel building.
Yes, sir.
And I know that it went to planning commission and they approved it, but did you know, and I didn't see it in the minutes, but do you know if anything was said about the type of material that they were gonna?
He didn't. He brought up that he was working with Mr. Langley for architectural details, but he hasn't gotten the plans to us yet.
It looked like a train station.
I know he mentioned in that, in one of those conversations, that it would be multi-story as well too, so.
I guess my concern about it is that it's C1 regardless of the owner, and the owner could change tomorrow. And you could do a multi-story pre-engineered steel building. That's probably not the intent, but it could happen. And I'll admit, I was wrong. I thought the overlay district went on down Poinsett further.
Would you like to make that motion? Would you like to make
The
that
overlay
motion?
district? No, I'll defer that to you, Mr. Bettis.
There is a highway transitional district that comes down from Memorial to Poinsett in Maine, but it's mainly for not allowing for parking lots in the front and signage requirements. There aren't actual material details in that plan.
Okay, so parking would have to be in the rear.
Parking would have to be in the rear. I believe he would have, in talking with him, I believe he wants to have a few parking spaces on site, but then kind of utilize public parking for everything else.
Jay, would you feel better about this if you knew specifically what they were gonna put on the site, what their intent was?
Well, we're working really hard, and downtown looks really good, and yeah, I would feel better.
it possible for us to table this until the next meeting and then get some more information from the applicant to better understand?
Yes, sir, we can do that. We can reach out to them tomorrow and let them know we'd like to have some type of rendering.
What would we have to do to make that possible?
Take the motion back.
Yeah.
Well, we got a motion and a second on the table.
Just, we would need the person that made the motion to amend it.
Yeah, I guess, I guess what I'm thinking is, you know, to Jay's point, the current owner can come in and show us his drawings and tell us what he plans to do.
Yeah, that's correct.
Sell it next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then it still changes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know that everybody sitting here knows who the owner is, but I mean, I think that the intention would be that it would certainly be something that would be appropriate to the downtown area. But, you know, if council's level of concern is such that, you know, that you'd like some validation on that, we can certainly move forward with that. I don't know that he's got drawings yet, though, at this point.
Well, you're correct. He could come in and, you know, after our next meeting and sell it, you know, right out, and then it doesn't matter. But it would just be another level of comfort because it's happened before in downtown. And, Tammy, what do I need to do?
Who made the motion?
I did.
You did?
Councilman Arrowood, you just need to amend your motion.
I'd like
To
to
table it.
amend my motion to table this issue until our next meeting, and so we can review some.
Who seconded?
Mr. Griffin.
Do you mind holding it over
Mm-hmm.
rather than tabling it?
Yeah.
We'll have to take, if it's tabled, we'll have to take action.
You have to take it,
Back
yeah.
council. If
Just
you
hold it
hold
over.
Yeah, just hold it over.
Hold it up.
And since Mr. Griffin made the second, he would need to,
Well, I'll amend the second. So.
okay.
All right, the motion is to hold this item over, and to contact the owner in regards to additional information, in regards to ordinance number 45-2021. Other conversation at this point, questions, comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to the last item of old business, which is the second final reading of ordinance number 46-2021. It's an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a development agreement by and between the city of Greer, South Carolina, and Four Star Real Estate Group Incorporated. Comes as second reading. Any new or additional information in that regard, Mr. Merriman?
No, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to receive
So move.
and a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to items of new business. We only have one this evening as the first reading of ordinance number 47-2021. It's an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Christopher and Sarah Dickinson located on Gibbs Shoals Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R12 for said property. Mr. McMahon joins us for this conversation. Mr. McMahon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you stated, the owners are looking to annex into the city and zone the property as R12. Their hope is to build a single-family home, and they'd like to connect a sewer. Here's an aerial view of the property. This property right here is Blaze Ridge. It's currently under development. That's where they're actually going to tie in through a sewer line that's being built at this site. Here's the current zoning of the property. Directly across is the middle school, which is R15. You have R12 kind of to the south of that, and then DRD. And the future land use map shows this kind of adjacent to suburban neighborhood and mixed employment. And here's kind of the current street view. Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on September 20th. That's all the information that I have at this time, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Okay, thank you, sir. For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive. So moved. And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
This is for one single residence.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure would look good with a bunch of townhomes on it, wouldn't it? Comments? Discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, in executive session this evening, we have one personnel matter. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pertaining to administration as allowed by state statute, section 30-470A1.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Anticipate no action. Council will stay in chambers. We thank you for joining us this evening. Session, we considered one personnel matter, taking no action in that regard. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.